Welcome to the Tinuiti Fireside Discussion. I'm Simon Polton. I'm our EVP of Innovation here at Tinuiti. And today we're going to take a dive into the Q2 2024 Digital Ads Benchmark Report. So, this is a report that we do every quarter, and it's specifically developed by our research team. Today, though, I'm very excited to be joined by a team of experts that will help us dive in and dissect some of the key trends that we're seeing at this very moment in time. So, specifically, I'm joined by Michelle Merklin, who leads our search practice, Jack Johnston, who leads our social team, and fresh off a Prime Day extravaganza, we have Elizabeth Marsden, who leads our commerce team. Thank you all for being here today and taking the time to dive into our Q2 Digital Ads Benchmark Report. Now, at a macro level, we've seen some slower year over year spending in Q2 prior to that Q1 year over year performance. We are, of course, seeing this overarching convergence of function across platforms that's really blurring the line between what may have traditionally been viewed within the domain of search, social, commerce, right? Of note, we're seeing TikTok converge with search and commerce with their search ads product, their TikTok shops, respectively. We're seeing Amazon really spread their wings beyond what's traditionally commerce. And many other platforms are really following suit here in terms of that inventory diversification. First, though, I'd love to hear from our team about what really stuck out to them from the Q2 report. And I'll also be asking you to provide some color as to why we may be seeing some of these emergent trends. Michelle, what really stuck out to you through the traditional search lens?
Everything in the search landscape has been all about AI every day recently. So it was really not too surprising to see that there was some fluctuation in overall text ad click through rate that coincided with the unveiling of AI overviews across
Mm.
Google, which happened around May. So we did see that the click through rates generally dropped off month over month from April to May. That is interesting. And I don't think that's too surprising because we know that the functionality of AI overviews does have more of a hybrid organic and search mixed with this kind of AI and chatbot type experience. It's not too surprising to see that there's less clicks happening perhaps on some of the paid placements there. That said, we also know that AI overviews are not nearly as prevalent now as they were in early May, right after some of these changes happened. We're seeing Google roll back the amount of AI overview frequency, which I think is going to potentially have a positive impact on some of those advertiser click-through rates that were dropping off right after the high rollout period.
It is certainly interesting to see the effect that this may have on Google's core business. The reality is, clicking through on search ads is ultimately where the revenue is generated. The impression of search ads, of course, generates no direct revenue for Google in that capacity. But it is very interesting to contrast that to the way that we've seen Bing and Microsoft roll out with Copilot as an independent feature within the SERP. So I am particularly interested in that. And a lot of it came from PR, but I do wonder how much of it, perhaps on the Google side, also came from the acknowledgement and the reality that it can hurt the core ads business if it's rolled out too broadly. Or maybe, who knows, that there's a future state where there's SEO has been talking about for a long time, this idea of zero-click searches. Maybe paid search folks will start talking about that. Maybe we even see a change to the CPC toward a CPM model.
Yep, I totally agree. I do think that it's in Google's best interest to continue driving as much clicks and volume that they are getting paid for. So I don't expect that we'll continue to see negative impact to a lot of these advertiser trends. I think a lot more of the kind of evolutions and strategy are going to have to come more from the organic side of things, where
Mm,
paid is going to continue to be an area where advertisers will need to lean in, maybe even more heavily as these AI overviews become more prevalent.
yeah, absolutely. Did anything else stick out to you?
The other one I wanted to touch on was around the fact that the retail performance max conversion rates have been actually improving. And I think that's a testament to the fact that not only are more advertisers in the retail space leaning into performance max, but they're also using more of the advanced features that can help with actual conversion rates and efficiency. Things like audience signals that are helping boost the bidder, search themes that are also helping drive the direction of how performance max is activating and pulling in the right audiences. So that was really encouraging to me. And I
Yeah.
think that's hopefully going to be a continued trend of increased efficiencies coming out of that hybrid campaign type.
Absolutely. I think coming out of Google Marketing Live earlier this year, we learned a lot from the Google engineering team just as to the advancements that they'd been making with PMAX, the nature of how the algorithm is being tuned more effectively, how they're able to use less data in certain capacities. But really, that doesn't, you hear that, oh, this is very interesting. But until you see the proof in the pudding, it is very hard to see if that is actually true or if it's just a great marketing campaign. And I think we are seeing now, I guess what I would frame as PMAX turning the corner and maybe a moment in time for folks who have been the naysayers or look, you tried it once a few years ago and performance tanked. Look, that's the nature of machine learning. And it's a moment in time now to perhaps have no sacred cows and really think about, hey, this is where the future is going, and it's certainly an opportune time to lean in there. Jack, from your perspective, what were some of the things that really stuck out to you?
Super fascinating to see that while spend is up a little bit on the platform, we're actually seeing a higher skew of investment going towards Instagram compared to traditional Facebook
Mm,
and other ad placements, which is then leading to inflated CPMs. So traditional marketers may look at
mm,
that and be like, ooh, we're putting our money in the wrong place. But what we know is that with Advantage Plus shopping, you're actually putting a lot of power into the algorithm. So if you're investing more heavily into Advantage Plus shopping, which we know advertisers are doing, and now CPMs are going
mm-hmm,
up because more dollars are going to Instagram, it leads us to believe that maybe Instagram is actually turning the corner a little bit more. And despite the higher cost, is actually driving a greater return for advertisers. And that's pretty consistent with where we've seen Meta invest some of their energy in terms of new efficiencies within the buying platform and within even the new ad units, talking about Gen AI
mm.
creative, copy iterations, changing some of the call to actions that appear within Instagram. All very interesting, and I think congruent down that route. So certainly no need to raise an alarm, but certainly something that we'll be keeping a really close eye on to kind of see how that progresses.
Absolutely. Well, and Meta, just in a broad capacity, is certainly, I think, feeling the weight in the room right now, being TikTok. And I think one of the things that was really interesting about the most recent Meta earnings call was when they talked about increasing time on site and the need to focus on that. And of course, they always have to continually focus on that. But from an algorithmic optimization capacity, it almost seems like we're very used to Meta always playing from the front position, but maybe now they're playing a little bit from behind. Did anything about TikTok stick out to you here?
Yeah, the TikTok ban, I feel like, is top of mind for any advertiser that's thinking
Oh
about
yeah.
it. For us to see that we're seeing about a 10% increase in investment and it's continuing to grow, I think really shows that advertisers have doubled down. But to your point, the Metas of the world, even Google with YouTube Shorts, like they're really figuring out ways to double down, bring over some of the
Mm,
creators and try and position themselves for what the future will look like there. But from TikTok's perspective, they're moving faster than ever. They use this phrase, everything all the time, all at once. And it's
mm,
so true. Like they're always rolling out new ad products. Just this year, we've seen exponential growth in TikTok Shop, despite a quadruple increase in TikTok Shop fees. There's still over 500,000 advertisers there. And then we're also seeing TikTok search, which you alluded to a little bit earlier. And I think that's going to be probably their next big ad unit that we're going to see them lean into, because there were some great reports that came out in October that actually showed that these Gen Z and millennials are favoring social search opportunities and discovery opportunities on social apps over traditional browsers. So for platforms to be able to take advantage of that, I think we're seeing TikTok start to lead the way. You're even seeing the likes of Pinterest start to reignite some of their search
mm.
conversations from almost a decade ago as well. So very curious there, but I think just showing that advertisers haven't abandoned hope yet, and we'll probably continue to see some growth.
Yeah, it's funny, the everything everywhere all at once. Maybe forget the metaverse that Zuckerberg's talking about. We're talking about the multiverse here. And I think there's a really interesting play coming from TikTok just across the core convergence. And perhaps they are really setting the tone for what the future of what we'll initially call social, purely because of the identity graph or purely because of the individuals and the way content is sourced. We're really seeing the proliferation of that across all vectors at this moment in time, which is incredibly compelling. So, Elizabeth, what did you see in the report?
Two things that stuck out in particular is an up and a down. The down was around the Amazon sponsored display. In terms of amount of growth that we saw quarter over quarter, I would say there's two things at play there. Probably, obviously, Prime Day, right? As we prepare in, you could almost argue from a sponsored display perspective with that, there's an opportunity to be taken care of because of CPMs will drop as well as the traffic goes down, right? Because we're just aren't investing. You could be grabbing some of that pre Prime Day traffic. The other flip side to that is what are we doing on the Amazon DSP? So perhaps what we're seeing is more, and we are seeing growth in the Amazon DSP investments across the board. So whether or not that's enterprise or some of our mid-tier or lower end or smaller customers starting to test into or invest bigger in. And part of that has to do with just the amount of reach and the complexity in which you can get to in the targeting with Amazon's DSP versus sponsored display, which is appearing on a noisy marketplace, shall we say. Like when you go start shop, there's a lot of noise going on there. And I would say the flip side is our up. What surprised me or what stood out to me is not a surprise, but our Walmart growth. So when you look at the sheer
Mm,
amount of growth, there's two things at play. One is just more entries. It's a newer space, right? So whenever it's like less than 5 years old, every year is up, ideally year over year, as more brands invest in the Walmart platform itself. But our growth itself is either at par or higher than the market, as we're seeing externally. So Walmart as a channel, particularly with sponsored products, is growing.
Well, and obviously they've been a mainstay on Main Street for a very long time in terms of that actual in store consumer experience. But I think Walmart has been making incredible investments in their core infrastructure around, frankly, being a digital competitor
It
to
it helps a
Amazon and
lot
having that
when you
ecosystem.
hire ex Amazon people that have already
It
built
does.
Amazon ads to come over and build your Walmart product.
Absolutely, and it probably also helps when you looking to advance into the world of TV and you buy a major TV manufacturer. Certainly, yeah, a lot of things happening with Walmart at this moment in time as they really seek to take down the gorilla in the room that is Amazon. But yeah, no, and it just in terms of, I think one of the areas when you're talking about Amazon that I think we need to be mindful of is the fact that it's not just this commerce network, right? There's this huge play with Prime Video.
Well,
Did anything stick out to you there?
so obviously it's new. So again, we're going to see that
It's new.
double digit growth. We're going to see a lot of testing in, but from a full funnel perspective, when you really start to look at all the different partners that we interact with, tell me which one can get you Thursday Night Football down to a branded sponsored product search. Like with the depth and the capacity, and of course the reach that they have, it makes sense from a Prime Video perspective that just even a little bit, right? What does 1 to 2 to 5% do when you add just to the sheer volume that they have today? They don't have to go monetize 25% of the inventory. Five makes a good impact, and
Right.
that's where we're sitting right now. Is it's that ramp. So ask me this question
Mm.
again this time next year, and we'll see what it looks like. It's kind of
Right.
like
If there is one big opportunity for brands that you see within each of these core domains based on the findings of this report, what would that be?
I think one of the things that is going to be a big opportunity here is to just really embrace the understanding that for advertisers on Google, Performance Max really is no longer a differentiator.
Mm,
It's become table stakes.
yeah,
So if you're not doing it, you are just way behind and you are going to be missing out on opportunities as AI continues developing, as the overviews continue pulling in different elements that are really dependent on leaning into a lot of Google's automated solutions within their advertising suite. So I think that's not going away anytime soon. If anything, it's probably just going to become more accelerated as the world of AI creatives and the AI search results is becoming more ubiquitous. So I
ab-
think if you've been afraid to test things and lean into a lot of these Google products in the past, you've just got to bite the bullet and go forward, especially for a lot of retailers right now gearing up for Q4. This is the time to do that testing and to really get comfortable and to lean in.
absolutely. It is. I think we're maybe beyond the first mover advantage, but there's still probably that second mover advantage opportunity on the table for folks. With that, Jack, I'd love to hear from you. One big opportunity that you're seeing for brands in the social space.
Yeah, I think social is really becoming everything. It's traditional social, it's commerce, it's search, it's long form and short form video content. I think the most important thing advertisers can do is just remember that and don't be competitive, because your most successful media strategy is going to be the one that has harmonies across all channels. Don't let that come at the price of social or to social's advantage. We want to be working together with the channels, up leveling maybe the TV campaigns you're doing or the commerce strategy you might have in the partnerships with retailers. How do we up level the TikTok shop? Or how do we elevate your search strategy with Pinterest or with TikTok search as well? So being able to find those similarities and measure it and really tie that back to your bottom line business results is truly, I think, what's going to help businesses grow this year.
Absolutely, adaptability to the convergence is paramount, and it's certainly it's accelerating. I feel like a broken record saying now more than ever, and there is this sort of turning point reality where that convergence is now very accessible, and brands are not leaning into the search or the commerce side of social platforms, then they are probably leaving a lot of money on the table. And then, of course, Elizabeth, the world of commerce, where is that opportunity?
There. So in our report, we're pretty
Okay.
tactical and we have pretty facts about what we're seeing across our book with business, whether or not that's Prime, whether or not that's sponsored displays, CPC products. It's the non-endemic opportunity for the last half of this year. If you look
Mm,
at what we were talking about with the streaming capability and Prime Video and how those CPMs are coming down, the inventory is becoming more available. Think about beyond commerce. So when we say non-endemic, granted that is a word that Amazon made up to explain businesses
mm,
that sold or transacted on Amazon, but really what it is audience is. Think about that reach. Chase Bank didn't sign up a retail media network essentially because they were bored. It's because they know everything about us. Why did United
right.
Airlines do that Kinetic one? Why did they name it Kinetic? Not real sure. Didn't look into that. But this is just the start of the beginning. This is what's coming in this next year. And this is going to be one of the most disruptive things, I hope and plan to make it so, to the B2B and B2C space, because it should be. Like that
Yeah,
access to
yeah.
those to that information, new ways of finding lead gen. Let's go.
Absolutely, it's such an interesting second order effect coming out of. I think if you can trace it back toward the initial privacy moves by Apple, as we saw a lot of these signals fragment across the open web, there is this walled garden view. But frankly, it is if you have an identity spine, if you have an audience, you have critical behavioral information on that audience that is likely to indicate propensity for purchase, you can utilize that. And I think what we're all discovering right now is there was a gold mine under the ground. We just didn't know that was the thing that we were mining for. And now we do. It's just anything and everything is becoming an Iron Man. So
It's a little
huge
bit
opportunity. And
paralyzing, but it's a huge opportunity if you
yeah,
at least start baby steps. You crawl, walk, run, whatever you wanna,
absolutely.
whatever acronym you wanna use.
And I think the big takeaway there is, look, you don't sell a product on Amazon. That's actually fine. That's okay. I think a lot of folks hear the word Amazon, they go, that's not for me. But when you talk about non-endemic, that is absolutely for them. That is absolutely leveraging that information to push toward external products or external platforms or solutions. That is an
Yeah.
incredible opportunity.
Amazon has probably the best organized, most accessible way to go about it today, but they're not the only ones.
Mm,
Not outside of your Chase and Uniteds, but Walmart has something, Kroger has something, Target has something. It's like
yeah.
it. The list goes on.
And I'll be very interested in our future reports to see how we lean into the discussion here, because I think there's a lot of depth and coverage that we need to look at with both the fragmentation as well as the potential long term consolidation of these networks. And of course, look, there are only rumors at this moment in time, but the idea of the coming convergence of commerce within the TV landscape, and I think YouTube is incredibly well positioned to just excel in that capacity if they can bring transactions into that ecosystem. What a golden opportunity. Thank you all for taking the time to be part of today's discussion around our Q2 quarterly benchmark report. If you have made it this far and you are watching along with us and you found what we've talked about today to be compelling and interesting, we would absolutely encourage you to go ahead and click on the link that is associated with this video. Download a copy of this quarterly report. We make them every quarter. It will provide you with, I think, somewhat a view in the rear view window, but ultimately, it's going to provide that path forward. And as you really think about all the fragility and the dynamic tension that we're seeing across these networks, it is a good time to start making some of those bets for what will the next few years look like, and where are we going to start investing and building up our acumen so we can be powerhouses in the future and frankly have a well diversified portfolio of advertising networks in play. I am Simon Polton. We are the core Tinuiti innovation team, and we thank you for joining us.